Well, welcome back to the next portion of our program. We're very pleased to have Dr. Kyle Hutchinson from Virginia Tech visiting with us. He's already worked with a number of students in a variety of capacities, and it's been a great opportunity to expand our thinking about music. And so we're going to be doing the traditional masterclass format. We have a couple students who have prepared pieces. They will perform them in their entirety. We should clap at the end, and then after they perform, Dr. Hutchins will give a short lesson to each student so we can expand our thinking about saxophone technique, music, all kinds of stuff. So, without further ado.
Nice job on this piece.
Thank you.
Yeah, give her a hand. This is a really How long have you been working on this?
I think since around October.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's a lot of really great ideas in this. I think you have a really nice grasp of the piece. I want to give you a couple of ideas and talk about a few things today that may change the way that you think about this, or maybe just help you take your performance to the next level. Let's start by, can I just, now that I'm standing close to you, would you mind playing just right at the beginning one more time so I can see what you're doing here just a little bit closer from where I was sitting in the audience? Okay, very good. Can you tell me, when we go from niente to fortissimo, what changes with how we use the air on the saxophone? Is it the speed or the amount?
The speed.
Okay, can I give you another idea here?
Yeah.
I think that it's the amount of air that changes. Because I think on the saxophone there is a threshold with air about how and when the reed will vibrate. Am I playing with a lot of air or a little bit of air?
A lot.
That's a lot of air, right? But the air is not fast enough in order for the reed to vibrate. So if I speed that air up from nothing, there's the threshold, right, to make the reed vibrate. And so I'm wondering if we can start just by playing, the first note starts fortissimo and it's very high. But maybe on this low F sharp here, which is fingered in an awkward way because we're going to build a multiphonic out of it. But can you start by trying to get the reed to vibrate just on the other side of the threshold? So fast air, but not a lot of it. And so one of the ways that I think you can think about that is, for example, have you ever been out watering the flowers out in the lawn, right? What happens if you stick your thumb in front of the garden hose?
It shoots out.
Right, but does the water move through the garden hose any faster from the house?
No.
No, but the perception is, right, when you stick your thumb in front of the garden hose, it sprays, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what has happened to the opening?
It's like open.
Well, we've closed, we've made the opening from the garden hose smaller, right? So we've really focused that water. So I like this analogy in terms of playing the saxophone because I want you to think about really focusing the opening, but having the air really shoot. See if you can try to get this sound here. At that level. You hear the difference? So I think in a solo piece, or sometimes if we have a piece that is maybe like a concerto or with piano or a chamber piece, something like that, there are sometimes we have moments where we get to play solo. This one, you're responsible for all the notes, right? I think in a solo piece like that, there are only so many options that we have. We can play it faster or slower, we can play it louder or softer, or we can wait and not play anything, right? And so one of those things is I think in order to shape and make a compelling and interesting interpretation of something, we should always be thinking about what our options are here in order to put this together. So the thing that I would encourage you to do, and we'll work on this a little bit, but to think about what is the bottom-most dynamic that you can play on the instrument and the topmost dynamic, because what is the dynamic marking on that F sharp right there?
Triple P's.
Triple P. It's not just P. It's not piano. Piano means soft. It's not pianissimo. Very soft. It's pianissimo. Very, very soft. So immediately you're going from fortissimo to the softest sound that you can make. Is anything in this piece softer than triple P? No, but you have a lot of triple Ps. And so I think one of the ways that you can hook the audience in right away is by having a sound that is like almost oppressive, right? Super loud, and then immediately drop that down to as soft as possible. air into the mouthpiece. Can you try that just in the first little gesture right there? Do you hear a difference? Right? Playing something that is so soft like that, I think, is super effective. And there are many times that you have that throughout, you know. And so, for example, well, let's just look later here in this first line. At the end of the first line, it says long, which is very long, but it's double P to P to double P to P again. So I wonder if you can think about shaping that phrase, but in the context of something that is extremely soft. Something that makes the audience want to sort of lean in a little bit, right? Can you try this figure right here? Very soft. What do you think?
I think it's good.
Yeah, what do y'all think? It sounds quite different, right? So again, I always think about this. You know, you can play it faster or slower, louder or softer, or you can wait, right? So in the case of this, you have eighth note equals 72. Have you clocked this with a metronome?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel that it was at eighth note equals 72? Do you think that the rest of this is at eighth note equals 72 or just this gesture right here?
I think it's just this.
I totally agree with you. And I think that when it says très long, I think you can almost think of that as the length of a breath. You know, really let the thing to breathe and the time expand. And then in this one moment, you've got something in time. It's like a snapshot. And then time sort of floats again. Okay, can you start from the top one more time? And just play this first line. How do you feel about that sense of pacing?
It's a little slow.
It is a little slow, but why not?
Yeah.
You're responsible for all of the notes, right? And I have the sense that, because I always feel this way also when I'm performing alone, your perception of time when you're playing by yourself, when people are watching you and you're on stage, runs much faster than as we listen to things. Have you ever had this experience, or any of you that's also musicians? I have this experience frequently, where I leave the stage after playing something, particularly if it's technical, and I am just maybe distraught backstage of like, oh my God, I couldn't play it up to tempo. It wasn't fast enough, or something like that. And then I go back and listen to the recording afterwards, and I'm like, oh my God, that was so fast. It was too fast. Right? Because it's a sense of, partly it's a sense of control, but also it's a sense of like how fast your brain is processing information when your adrenaline is pumping. Right? Do any of you have this experience as well? Right? It is part of your flight or fight response system. Your brain does not know a difference between coming across a bear in the woods and being nervous on stage. Like chemically in your body, the exact same thing is happening. And so when you're in a position like this, you don't know, you can't run and you can't fight because it's not one of those situations. But because you're nervous, I assume that you're nervous. I get nervous when I perform. Are you a little bit nervous?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. It's natural. We all have that. I think the more you do it, maybe you get better at dealing with those nerves, and you can sort of calm, your brain waves down, calm your breath down. But generally speaking, when that happens, our perception of time moves at a little bit of a different pace. So that's one of the things for me when I work on solo unaccompanied pieces. I always want to think about the time and the pacing, but also about the contrast, because contrast is so important in music. Not just contemporary music, but also classical music, traditional music, jazz. How can we create that kind of contrast? Can we talk a little bit also about some articulation, which happens towards the end of the piece? Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'm also curious if you have any questions about this. But one question that I have for you is that at the end of the piece here, you've got notes that are marked with a staccato, you've got notes that are marked with an accent and a marcato, and you've got things that are marked with a staccato underneath a slur. So when you articulate on the saxophone, how do you do it? What are you thinking of? What is the mechanism? Do you think of a syllable as you articulate?
Yeah.
What syllable do you think?
Like top.
Okay. Let me give you a different idea here, and we can all practice this together. When you say ta, I think that, in my opinion, that's a very brass-centric idea. What's the shape of the opening on a trumpet, for example? It's a circle, right? We're playing into a funnel. So when you say ta, it pulls the tongue to the middle of the mouth and lowers it so that we can shape our air into a laser beam right into that circle. Basically, we're playing into a funnel. But what's the shape of the opening on a saxophone?
It's like this.
Right, it's like a slit, or a line or something like that. And so I don't think ta, because I feel like that's aiming a circular column of air towards an opening that's shaped like that. So instead, I always think that I want to widen the tongue and raise it in the back of the mouth so that my anatomy is shaping the air column already like the shape of the opening on the saxophone. And so to that end, I think the syllable D. Because if you say D, it raises the tongue so that the sides are touching the top back molars. And so that's like a big E syllable. I like D instead of T because I think that it puts less taste buds against the reed, and also where the reed touches the tongue, or where the tongue touches the reed, I should say, is in a different place. So I always think about articulating on the blade edge of the reed as opposed to underneath the reed on the face of it. So if you say ta, or a syllable that starts with a T, you're going to be articulating underneath on the face of the reed, whereas D will arc your tongue so that you can articulate on the blade edge of the reed. And we can all do this together and you can see what the difference is. So say, everybody with me, say ta 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 ta.
Ta 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 ta.
Say T T T T T. Now say D D D D D. So 2 questions. Which one is a softer articulation, the D or the T? D. Which one keeps the tongue arched and high in the back of the mouth, the ta or the D? D, right? And so for me, when I am thinking about this, I always think that I want to articulate with a syllable like D. Now, you have different kinds of articulation. So maybe let's just start with that first. Can we just start with just the neck and the mouthpiece by itself? How many minutes left?
10.
Okay, we're doing good. Okay, can you just play this with me? Ooh, we got a different intonation going. Will you push your mouthpiece on a little bit? So that the tongue comes in contact with the reed. D, D. Does that feel like the tongue is touching the reed in a different place?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where on the tongue? Or what is different about it?
I think it's more like towards the tip of the tongue.
Okay. Where were you touching the tongue on the reed before?
I tend to do it towards the back.
Yeah. So for me, it's like somewhere like right in the middle. Like somewhere right in there, because as I arc my tongue, it's not quite the tip of the tongue, right? It's not the tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed, it's more back that a little bit. Were you thinking even further back than that? I feel like if you're thinking ta, what it does is it arcs the tongue in a different place, so much more of the tongue is coming in contact with the reed.
Yeah.
Have you ever, which is something else we can talk about too, because you have a few slap tongue things here, but do you know how to slap tongue?
Not really.
So slap tonguing is a kind of articulation, right, where the reed comes away from the mouthpiece and then smacks back against it. You can make a slap tongue sound without even putting your mouth on it. It goes like this. You hear that sound? Can you do that? Yeah, you hear that? It's really soft, but that's essentially what the mechanism is. And when you put a lot of tongue against the face of the reed, it pulls the reed away from it and smacks with like a little suction cup. So oftentimes young players, 6th graders, 7th graders, have no problem. Have we made this sound before? Right? That is a slap tongue. And it's a very common thing when you're young, and then we sort of train it out of you to play correctly, or something like this. And now we have to go back and, and relearn how to play like that. So you can put your neck back on. So we'll come back and talk about slap in just a second, but I want to talk about these staccato right here. So if you can think, and again, this is, just a new, you'll have to go away and practice this. I don't expect that this is something that you may incorporate into your playing today necessarily. But a very, very light articulation, thinking D on all of these staccatos. So maybe one example is like right here at the bottom of the page. You hear the difference? Is the second way heavier or lighter than the first way?
Heavier.
I think so too. And what do you like better for a situation like this?
The lighter.
Exactly. So think D, 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 D. Can you try that? So it's very short. Now the last note there has a housetop accent on it. What's that called?
An accent?
Well, an accent looks like this, right?
Marcato.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between a marcato and an accent?
Marcato is like a staccato and an accent together.
It's very short, and is it more aggressive or less aggressive than an accent?
More aggressive.
I totally agree. It's like a total punch. D, 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 ba! So really hit that last note. Even more. Really go for it. Try again. But lighter. You hear how you're almost getting a little pop? We're like starting to verge on a slap tongue, which I can always hear because that starts to sound like top, 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 instead of D, 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 D. D, 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 D. Can you say that?
D, 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 D.
Yeah, D, 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 D. Really punch it at the end. Okay? Sounds like top. Do you hear it? Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Try one more time. So I think that's clear. So this is something that you can sort of practice and think about as you work on your articulation. So then you hold a note for 4 or 5 seconds, and then at the end you've got 3 more notes that are staccato underneath a slur. What does that mean?
It means legato.
Okay, that is not my interpretation of something like that. To me, this means more of a string marking. If I played the violin, I think I would know exactly what to do. So if you play a string instrument like this, the bow goes up and down, right? Which one do you think is a heavier articulation? The down bow or the up bow?
The down.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. And why is that?
Because it's like the forces
The forces of what?
of like gravity.
Exactly, right? You can try as best you can to make those as even as possible. And if you play, does anybody play a string instrument here? We try very hard to make those sound evenly, don't we? Do they always sound super even? No, right? It sounds different when you push and pull the bow because exactly what you said, the force of gravity. And so to me, this kind of marking as a string instrument means to play light, to articulate exactly what's marked, short with a staccato, but to do it in the same bow direction. Do you see this marking frequently when you play string instruments? Is that what that means to you? Exactly. I would not change the bow direction because you're going to get accent, less accent, more accent. So to me, that means that we will articulate it short, but in the same manner, so that one note is not more special or less special than the other one. In this way, when we played this figure here, obviously that first note, that F sharp, is going to be heavier. And it says, obviously, the last note has a housetop accent on it. We're going to punch that. But these, to me, mean to articulate in the same way for all of them. Now, all of them are articulated in the same manner. Okay? This is loud. It goes to forte. And then immediately you have a breath in another one of these triple pianos on a low C sharp with a marcato accent. How do you negotiate that? Something that is at the bottom threshold of sound, but also punched and on some of our lowest notes. It's really difficult, isn't it? So how are you thinking about negotiating that?
Well, I try to use like a lot of air
Uh-huh.
and just like articulate
Exactly.
a lot.
Okay. I'm wondering if we can think about the intensity of the articulation without having the reed fully vibrate in a full tone like we would in the figure right before it. So instead of it's really soft, but you still get that punch. And one way that you can try to get that articulation in it is maybe by popping the first finger on your left hand right as you articulate it. Listen to the difference. So just that little bit of extra helps that marcato. Can you try that? But again, fast air, but not a lot of it, right at the threshold of what you can sound. So pop the first finger of your left hand. Yeah. Softer. Ooh. Big difference, right? Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay. So now we have slap. So to me, going back to this idea of articulating, I would purposely switch to a ta, and I would really sort of slow the air down so that the reed doesn't vibrate at all. I'm just heavy articulating with very little air. Because again, we want the reed to come away from the mouthpiece and then smack back against it. Can you try that? It may not happen today. This is one of those things that takes a little bit of time to develop, but not fast air. Don't let the reed fully vibrate and just taw like a thud. Less air. But harder tongue, less air. Ooh. You hear the difference? And something like this that's that soft, that's very effective for me. Now, if you want like something that's way louder, you have to sort of negotiate that. But something that's this soft. Can you try just that little figure? Oh, so just pop the finger there on the C sharp. Ooh, yeah. See if you can get less air in that sound and just the percussive effect of the tongue. So harder on the tongue and less on the air. Almost. One more time. I know we have that impulse to really push the air and try to make the reed vibrate, but I don't think you want the reed to vibrate in a usual way. Okay? And then right here at the end, again it says slap at triple P. Right? That's quite a bit different volume, I think, than you were playing before. Does this give you some things to think about as you develop this? Again, I think in a solo piece, and we'll talk about this to the person that's next, also playing a solo piece, you can play it faster or slower, louder or softer, or you can wait. But those are kind of our options, right, as we think about doing this. So again, I would think about really trying to expand the moments that are long, that are marked long, and to really contextualize your dynamics to make the biggest contrast possible. Thanks for playing. It's really great to hear you. Good luck with it. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's nice to hear you play that.
Thank you.
This is a great piece. Nice. I am always hesitant to tell you too much when your teacher is the composer. I think he knows how he wants the piece to go. But I have maybe some thoughts for you. Well, let me ask you a question first. When you play a multiphonic, it's more than just the fingering, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What happens in order to make that speak, or to make it speak more
Kind of have to
clear?
like change like the shape of, like make it resonate more in your like mouth and in here.
That's right. One of my teachers, Marcus Weiss, who wrote the book kind of on how to do that, my impression of him talking about how to play multiphonics is that you have to go inside of the mouth, right? It is a little bit of a self-discovery in your own anatomy, frankly, to figure out how to make some of those happen, because we have different shapes, right, inside of the mouth. Do you have a word, or is there a way that you call that technique of like what the shape of the mouth is? In my practice, I call this voicing. Right? Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Voicing is the position of the tongue and the manipulation of the oral cavity. So we can all do this together. Everybody sing this note with me. Aw. What changed? The position of the tongue and the manipulation of the oral cavity, right? So when you play a low B flat on the saxophone, you cannot voice it in the same way that you play an altissimo B flat, for example. Do you have an altissimo range? A little bit? Working on it?
Yeah.
Right? These things change, right, as we move up and down the scale. And so in order to make the multiphonic speak, or to make the specific tones within the multiphonic, right, the last piece that we just listened to, some of those multiphonics bloom from a single tone, right? So we have to, as we play that, shape this. So let's talk about just a couple of things that I might leave you with that would help you on that. Do you practice voicing in any particular way?
Just kind of like try different things.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah. So it's just a little bit of exploring.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me give you just a couple of quick exercises. Do you ever practice overtones?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I like start on like a lower note, and
Mm-hmm.
then kind of change the voicing to try to make
Okay.
it jump up.
Okay, so let's start with, this is what I call a matching exercise. Okay, so let's start with D with the octave key. When we press the octave key, we are playing an overtone, and it is being facilitated through a mechanism called venting. And we are venting the octave key. We have 2 octave pips, one on the neck, which we call the upper vent tube, and one here on the body, which we call the lower vent tube. When we press the octave key, it vents, and we're able to facilitate the overtone. The first overtone is an octave. So what I'd like to do is start with this little exercise, and anybody who plays the saxophone, maybe this is something that you can practice as well. So these are, when I practice my overtones and voicing, I like to play out of the Sigurd Rascher Top Tones book. I find that book starts very advanced. It doesn't actually teach you how to play overtones. It sort of throws you into the deep end of the pool. So these exercises are things that I've come up with in my own teaching. This sort of ends at that book and works backwards to what a 6th grader could do. And I certainly, when I was teaching beginning band, taught my 6th graders how to do this right from the beginning. So we'll start with D with the octave key, and then you'll take your thumb off of the octave key, but you will maintain the pitch of that middle D, which means that we have to engage here, our voicing muscles, and then we will relax, and it'll slur down to low D, like this. And the most important note is the second one, because we're trying to match, right? That first note to the second note, and then we play the fundamental. Can you try that? Pretty easy, yeah? Okay, E flat.
It's starting to go down.
We're having to engage more as the higher we go. G sharp. To the first mode or the first overtone using the octave key as a means of facilitating that. Matching 2 is now playing the first mode without, an aid. So you'd start, that one is all slurred, the next one is all separated. So low D, middle D, low D, but no octave key. So try one more time. There you go. Good. G sharp. How you feel? It has to change. Now, when you get to this point where it doesn't speak very readily for you, Sigurd Rascher in his book says you should use tone imagination. What that means is that the note that you're hearing in your head has to be the note that you're about to play. And you have to hear that note so loud it's like a bell is ringing in the room. It's the only possible note that can come out of your horn. Do you know, have you taken ear training or anything like this?
Oh,
Okay. For those of you who have taken ear training, this is where, you practice singing what you see on the page, but also writing down what you hear. So it's like you're hearing and able to produce the same note. Do you have a song that helps you memorize what an octave sounds like?
No.
You ever seen The Wizard of Oz?
Oh yeah.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow, right? The opening is an octave. So can you play low G? Then I want you to sing low G. Can you try that? Can you sing that pitch? Good. Now imagine that we're about to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So that note is some. And then don't sing it, but imagine that next note. Some. Right? But imagine it so loud in your head that the only note that comes out of your horn is that. So play the fundamental, sing the fundamental, imagine the octave, play the octave on a G. So play low G, sing it.
Da.
There you go. So it's just about imagining that sound in your mind. Okay, G sharp. Faster. Aha. B flat. It's almost there.
Yeah.
Big air. Aha. B. When you get to this point, it is harder the higher you go. One of the things that I do sometimes is I cheat it a little bit just by flicking the octave key. And try to hang on to that pitch, just enough to sort of train my muscles. This is a little bit like going to the gym for your face, right? You are exercising these muscles because you're engaging the muscles, you're relaxing the muscles. What does that sound like? Sounds like working out, doesn't it? Right? That's essentially what this is. And by doing this, you are able to control better when you have a moment like this where you need to play multiphonics and find exactly where that feeling is in order to create that sound. So we can talk afterwards. I don't want to spend all of the time on this, but I have a series of 8 of these exercises that leads you to the Sigurd Rascher Top Tones book. And that's, you know how a trumpet works. A trumpet has 3 buttons, or a trombone, for example, which has no buttons at all. You're just changing the length of the slide. Everything has to happen here. We can do this on the saxophone as well. We just have 20-something buttons instead. On the same finger. Have you ever tried that? Right? So it's training your ear to hear that so that you can produce that tone, but it's also training all of these muscles in order to produce exactly that, right? And multiphonics are one of these things that are super fickle in order to make it happen. Now, at the end of this piece here, where are the rest of your pages?
It's this one.
Oh, I see, it's on the back. I got you.
But that's good.
So this multiphonic speaks super well, right, in my opinion. Low B, B flat, minus a note, the same air. Speaks very well. But some of these, whereas this one you had a little bit of trouble with. Okay? So can you try this one right here? But find the position for your voicing and set that. It's almost like you're trying to play that overtone, right? It feels different than the way that you would normally blow. Because if you just blow as normal, what note is going to speak? An F sharp that's altered a little bit because we're just adding some lower notes. You see, you have to make that adjustment there. Can you try that with by playing an F sharp, and then add 6, and then add C. Very clear, right? So can you start just by playing on that? Good. Exactly. Now what about some of these here at the end? Is there another page that's not here? Okay. So that you get more of a lighter spectrum as opposed to this big crunch thing, because this is marked at pianissimo. Well, I'm not even fingering the right one here, sorry. Yeah, do you see how you have to like find where that place is in order for the sound to split into a spectrum? So 5, 6, C, B flat. Can you aim your ear more like down here? But back off on the ear. Back off. Yeah, you see how it wants to come into that dyad? So you have to aim your ear low so that that B flat will speak, because the F sharp is the harmonic. That will sound. Yeah, is that the right sound, Professor? +4, yeah. Can you try that? But keep the air going as you add the new note, because now it changes the length of the tube. Right? The sound on the saxophone does not come out of the bell, except for only on one note. That's the lowest note. The sound comes out of the first open hole on the saxophone. And so because we're fingering low B flat, the sound is coming out of this hole, and now that we add it, the sound is moving and coming out of this hole. So we have to sort of adjust the air a little bit. For a long time, for 2 years, felt like a long time to me, I taught here in Iowa, at the University of Northern Iowa. What is the topography generally in this part of the country? Flat. Where I live in Virginia is in the mountains. Have you ever driven in the mountains before? You have? Cool.
Well, I haven't tried it.
You've ridden, okay.
Yeah.
Do you drive?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're driving up a hill and you want to maintain 60 miles an hour, what do you have to do?
More on the gas.
More on the gas, just to maintain, right? And then when you come over the top and you go down on the other side, what do you have to do in order to maintain 60 miles an hour? Brake. So you can think of these hills and valleys in the music, and the gas being our air, right? The air cannot maintain in order to maintain the same volume, right? Because things are changing, the length of the tube is changing, okay? So with that in mind, see if you can try to get the sound to be steady across, but you have to, manipulate your air with it. What do you think?
It's a little better, I think.
Yeah, it's about contrast, right? I think generally speaking, you have a really nice sound. You have a really nice dynamic range, right? It starts very soft. It's very good. So hopefully, some of these, tools in your tool belt can help you think about training those muscles in your face in order to pull out the kind of sounds that you want to across the harmonic spectrum, right? Because there are many sounds that the saxophone can make on a single fingering based on how you change this. Now, do you have any questions for me?
No.
Let's give him a hand. It's a great job. Okay,
Thank you, Kyle. Before we break for lunch, I do want to give a shout out to Augustana's own WOG Radio. They are live streaming all of the events today, and it is being posted on YouTube as it happens. So at lunch, you can review everything we've learned from Dr. Hutchins and incorporate it in our practice. We'll be back at 2:30. That will be my recital. Then that's followed at 3:30 with a Q&A session with Dr. Hutchins. And everybody's welcome at that. And then the main event is tonight at 7:30 with Kyle Hutchins' recital. So until 2:30. Thanks.